Greetings, and thank you for tuning in to my podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Walker, family nurse practitioner. In today's episode, we will discuss cost barriers and access to various GLP-1 medications. I often see patients encounter pitfalls when they go to an online provider or even their PCP and request a specific GLP-1 medication, only to find their insurance denies coverage. Many times, individuals are unaware that the medication has specific eligibility requirements they do not meet, and a different GLP-1 might have been a better choice. Additionally, some insurance plans may not cover weight loss medications at all, regardless of the circumstances. Today's episode is designed to help you understand how to get your medication covered, why your insurance might not approve it, and the various barriers to obtaining GLP-1 medications, such as cash prices and shortages. We'll also discuss what the future holds and other alternatives to the brand GLP-1 medications. So, let's get started. Brand GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, or Zepbound can be quite expensive without insurance, often costing several hundred to over $1,000 per month. This high cost can be a significant barrier for many patients, leading to difficulties in affording the medication consistently. When patients can't maintain their medication regimen due to costs, they may not achieve the desired health outcomes, which can lead to worsening conditions like obesity, prediabetes, diabetes, and insulin sensitivity, just to name a few conditions. This creates a cycle where the initial investment in medication could ultimately save money by preventing complications, but the upfront cost can deter many from starting or continuing treatment. Additionally, high out-of-pocket expenses can lead to financial stress, making it harder for individuals to prioritize their health. Some patients may end up taking the medication whenever they can, not like it is recommended or prescribed, or discontinuing the medication altogether, which can negatively impact their overall well-being. If your insurance covers the cost of the medication, that's ideal. However, many people face denials from their insurance plans, and even when some coverage is provided, the out-of-pocket costs can still reach hundreds of dollars. While some manufacturers offer copay or discount cards, these may still require insurance approvals for the patient to benefit from the reduced rates. Even with discount cards, which typically provide a few $100s off, the remaining costs can still be quite high. Insurance companies, unfortunately, can provide many barriers and challenges when considering coverage for GLP-1 medications. For instance, clinical guidelines. Insurers often follow clinical guidelines that may prioritize other treatments before GLP-1s, leading to requirements for patients to try cheaper alternatives. This is what we call first-step therapy. This also leads to the term PA, also known as prior authorizations. Insurers may implement prior authorization processes requiring providers to justify the necessity of GLP-1 medications. This can create delays in access and added administrative burdens for healthcare providers. For instance, as the patient, you might have to show proof that you have seen a dietitian, joined a gym, or have tried other weight loss medications for a certain amount of time before your insurance company will approve the medication, and proper documentation is usually required. Unfortunately, there are some providers out there who just are not going to complete the paperwork and documentation to submit a PA because it can be time-consuming. Additionally, some insurance companies have their own guidelines regarding BMI and eligibility for GLP-1 medications. While manufacturers generally agree that a BMI of 30 or higher, or a BMI of 27 or higher with comorbidities like hypertension, type 2 diabetes, or high cholesterol qualifies a person for these medications, some insurance companies may require a higher BMI or additional criteria for approval. This can vary not only between different insurance companies, but also among the various plans offered by the same insurer. I've heard many patients say, well, can you please submit the fact that my blood work is abnormal, or I have a family history of this, or I've been trying this, I've been trying that. Sometimes that matters, sometimes it does not. Honestly, it really just depends on your insurance company. Trust me, it's not your provider. As long as your provider is actually submitting the paperwork, some insurance companies are just going to do whatever it is that they are going to do, no matter what. And then there's market dynamics. As more manufacturers enter the market, insurers may need to negotiate prices, which can complicate coverage decisions and formularies. I will add this tip in right here. Open enrollment will be starting real soon, and many will be signing up for new insurance plans or renewing current ones. You might want to reach out to your insurance company and see which plans, if any, will cover GLP-1 meds and what the qualifications are. Keep in mind that just because an insurance company tells you it's covered, it does not necessarily mean you meet the qualifications. So you will need to be assertive and ask a lot of questions. I have had plenty of people tell me, well, my friend has the same insurance and we work together and it was covered for them, but it wasn't covered for me, and we have a similar BMI. Sometimes we as providers don't know why it's approved and why it's not approved. So we just submit what we can. And at the end of the day, the insurance company does make that final decision. And then there's patient population. Insurers may be concerned about the long-term sustainability of covering high-cost medications for a growing population of patients, particularly as obesity and diabetes rates rise. So, unfortunately, this is another reason to deny coverage of GLP-1 meds. These changes can lead to inconsistencies in coverage and access, affecting patients' ability to obtain necessary medications. One year you might have coverage, but the next year it might be removed from the plan. Trust me, it happens. Some of you have probably already experienced this. I have plenty of patients that come into my office and they'll say, I used to take Ozempic or I used to take Zepbound, but now my insurance no longer covers it. So just keep that in mind. They may cover it 1 year or a couple of months, and then for obvious reasons, because so many people want the medications, it's taken off of your plan. That's very unfortunate. But now let's discuss other barriers to approvals and ways to try to help you get approved. As I mentioned earlier, patients sometimes request the wrong GLP-1 medication. Many people are familiar with Ozempic, even if they have not heard of any other GLP-1s. The name Ozempic is just the most popular. However, Ozempic is specifically designed to treat type 2 diabetes with weight loss as a side effect. While yes, you can take Ozempic and lose weight without a diagnosis of diabetes, but your insurance is unlikely to cover it. This is where a knowledgeable provider can help by recommending Wegovy instead. Although both medications contain the same active ingredient, semaglutide, Ozempic is primarily for type 2 diabetes, while Wegovy is focused on chronic weight loss. If you do not have type 2 diabetes, you'll have a much better chance of getting Wegovy approved than Ozempic. The same applies to Mounjaro and Zepbound. Both are GLP-1/GIP medications, but Mounjaro is intended for those with a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, while Zepbound is prescribed for chronic weight loss in patients without that diagnosis. Your chances of getting insurance approval are generally better with Zepbound if you do not have type 2 diabetes. So, don't go to your doctor and say, I want to start Mounjaro, and you don't have a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. I can assure you, your insurance company is going to deny that. Additionally, it's worth noting that your insurance may approve Zepbound, but not Wegovy, or vice versa. And the same can happen with Mounjaro and Zepbound. It's essential to work with a healthcare provider who will go the extra mile to help get your medication approved. This includes submitting multiple prior authorizations and making the best choice for your situation. Again, Some providers are just not going to continue, or they're not even going to submit the first prior authorization. So keep that in mind when you're signing up to try to get your medication for weight loss. Now, let's transition to discussing compounding medications. Let's say you have insurance and your insurance company denies all PAs. You have a few options. You can pay out of pocket, cash pay. You can purchase the compounding version of the medications, or you can just give up and move on without trying the medication. I will make it clear. I am a fan of compounded medications. My clinic was one of the first to start purchasing compounded semaglutide and tirzepatide. Weight loss is not new to me, nor are compounded medications. I have never had a problem with them, and I use legit compounding pharmacies. Semaglutide is the active ingredient in both Ozempic and Wegovy, while tirzepatide is the active ingredient in both Mounjaro and Zepbound. Most people do not always say compounded semaglutide or compounded tirzepatide, but when you hear the names semaglutide or tirzepatide, just know that they are the generic versions of the medications and are compounded from a compounding pharmacy. Let me say this and we will move on. Medications that are made by a compounding pharmacy are not FDA approved. However, the pharmacies/facilities themselves do have to follow some FDA regulations, but also the FDA does have to give approval for a compounding pharmacy to compound a medication, and semaglutide and tirzepatide are both on the shortage list by the FDA at this time. So they can be compounded. With that being said, many have opted to take the compounding GLP-1 route. The medication is generally less expensive and available in all doses. Insurance companies do not pay for compounding semaglutide or tirzepatide, but again, the prices are usually more affordable. There are numerous telehealth practices that prescribe compounding semaglutide and tirzepatide, as well as weight loss clinics and med spas. Just do your research and make sure to receive a good consultation before proceeding. And now, to piggyback off of mentioning the FDA, as you may or may not have recently heard, Zepbound and Mounjaro were both taken off the FDA shortage list a few weeks ago, which meant compounding pharmacies had to immediately stop compounding tirzepatide. Yes, there were some compounding pharmacies who never stopped compounding the medication, but for those who followed the guidelines, they stopped immediately. However, a judge recently ruled that compounding pharmacies could resume compounding tirzepatide while the FDA reevaluates their initial statement of Zepbound and Mounjaro being widely available and no longer on the shortage list. So, with that being said, I have a few points here. We're uncertain how long compounding pharmacies will be able to continue providing tirzepatide, but for now, it's still available. More importantly, the FDA is aware of public concerns regarding the issue of removing tirzepatide from being compounded because the public wants compounded tirzepatide. So, for now, compounding of tirzepatide has resumed for the time being. With that in mind, for those who believe that compounding pharmacies and the compounding of semaglutide or tirzepatide are problematic and unsafe, if that were truly the case, the FDA would have intervened to shut it down. And let me be clear, the only reason tirzepatide was shut down a few weeks ago was because Zepbound and Mounjaro were removed from the shortage list, not because compounding tirzepatide was unsafe. I hope today's episode has provided valuable insights into barriers to accessing GLP-1 medications and strategies for getting your medication approved by insurance. I'm Dr. Andrea Walker, owner of Dr. Andrea's Medical and Weight Loss Clinic and Telehealth DNP LLC. I hope you have an amazing week. For more weight loss tips, you can follow me on either of my business social media pages on Facebook or Instagram, or follow my IFBB Pro Bodybuilding Instagram site. The handle is fitness_chick29_. IFBB_pro. Make sure to get some workouts in. Don't forget to meal prep, and I will see you next week. Until then, bye for now.